Hi, kings and queens! I hope all is well and everyone is making the most of this quarantine life. But it is kind of unfortunate because, according to the weatherman, this weekend the temperature is supposed to be in the mid 60s, which is that nice go outside, take a long walk through the park, sit down and have a picnic type weather. But it's not the actual weekend yet, so we don't know for sure what the temperature is going to be. You see, what the weatherman did there is they made a prediction about what the temperature is going to be this weekend. By the end of today's lesson, scholars will be able to describe how the acronym CLUE, C-L-U-E, relates to the prediction strategy in order to be able to use CLUE to make and confirm predictions about a text. But why is that important? Well, you see, the prediction strategy helps students learn how to preview reading selections, link prior knowledge to the subject, make predictions and inferences about content, and evaluate the reading selection to answer questions that you yourself generate. You see, predicting involves more than just trying to figure out what happens next. As scholars find evidence to form hunches, which are those sneaking suspicions that are the basis of our predictions, you also ask questions, recall facts, reread, skim, infer, draw conclusions, and ultimately comprehend the text more fully. By the way, I'd like to point out, if I may, that one of the beautiful things about the prediction strategy is that it can be applied to both literary and informational texts. Now, like I mentioned when I stated the lesson objective, you're going to be learning what each of the letters in the acronym CLUE stands for. I took the liberty of providing you with these guided notes. However, if you're unable to print or type directly onto the document, I would like you to take the following notes on a separate piece of paper. Okay, so what do these letters stand for? Well, the C stands for check for clues. And when you're completing step 1, and you're checking, what you're doing is you are observing and perhaps taking mental notes. You might even decide to physically take notes of the following items. First is the title. You should be asking yourself, what can I predict about the reading from this title? Next is the author. You'll want to ask yourself, what, if anything, do I know about this author? Next are visual clues. You're going to look for pictures, charts, graphs, cartoons, photos, or any other visual clues. And the last thing you'll be checking for are reading clues. Reading clues are either words that are made to look different from the rest of the text, or a reading clue can be some new information about the passage that you discover by reading. The L stands for link to prior knowledge. This is where you ask yourself, what do the clues suggest? Those clues being the things that you checked for during step 1. And what do I already know about those clues, the things you checked for during step 1? The U stands for uncover predictions. This is where you actually make your prediction by saying the words, I predict that, followed by what you think is going to happen later in the story, or what you think you'll discover as you read more of the text. So steps 1 through 3 all take place before you've even read any of the text. But here we are at E, and the E stands for examine the reading. At this time, you will read part of the selection and check for reading clues, link new clues to prior knowledge, and uncover another prediction. Now it's time to apply what we've learned to an actual passage. Okay, so here I am checking. The title is Social Security. The author is Florian Del Bono. There are no visual clues, and also I don't see any bolded text. President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act into law on August 14, 1935. This law provided national retirement benefits for a family's primary worker. In later years, benefits were added for the retiree's spouse and children, as well as people who are disabled. The amount a person receives depends on the amount of income the person earned, as well as the length of time that the person paid Social Security taxes. To receive full benefits, a person must retire at full retirement age, which is between the age of 66 and 67, depending on the year the person was born. Where are the clues to the topic of this passage found? A, in the title, B, in the pictures and diagrams, C, in the author's name, D, in the reader's prior knowledge about Social Security, or E, none of the above. The amount of money retired people receive depends on A, the amount of money they saved while working, B, the age at which they received their Social Security card, C, the number of years in which they paid Social Security taxes, D, the amount of money they earned while paying Social Security taxes, or E, both C and D are correct. Great job. Yeah, the correct answer for question number 1 was A. The title of the passage, Social Security, ultimately ended up being what provided us with a clue to the topic of the passage, that topic being Social Security. And for number 2, the correct answer is E. By rereading, I know that the amount of money retired people receive depends on the number of years in which they paid Social Security taxes and the amount of money that they earned while paying Social Security taxes. Now let's repeat this process with another example. Okay, so again I start with step 1, checking for clues, starting with the title, Up from Slavery, and then the author, Nelson Tilley, who I've never heard of. I don't see any visual clues, and I also don't see any bolded text. Booker T. Washington was born a slave in 1856. After he and his family were freed, life was still hard. As a young boy, Washington had to work long hours in a salt furnace. He was determined to read, though, so he studied the letters and words on the salt barrels to learn the alphabet. Later, he was able to attend school. He worked hard at his studies and also held many jobs during this time to support his education. In 1872, Washington attended the Hampton Institute, a leading school for black children. He was so inspired by his love of learning that he became an educator after graduation. In 1881, Washington was called upon to establish a school for black youth. This school later became the Tuskegee Institute. Here, students could learn a trade and an industry and use their education to improve their lives. Washington served as the school's first principal and became known as an example of black leadership and progress. Which clue indicates that this passage might be about slavery? A, the title, B, the author's name, C, the lack of pictures, D, highlighted words, or E, repeated words. How did Booker T. Washington learn the alphabet? A, by attending the Tuskegee Institute, B, by working as a janitor, C, by studying marked barrels at the salt furnace, D, by studying marked barrels at a coal mine, or E, by attending public school as a child. Awesome job. The correct answer for number 1 is A. Upon checking for clues, it was the title, Up from Slavery, that indicated to us that the passage might be about slavery. And the correct answer for number 2 is C. Having gone back and reread, I discovered that by studying marked barrels at the salt furnace, Booker T. Washington learned the alphabet. All right, now I'm going to model using clue to make a prediction about the book that we're going to be reading. Until we meet again. No, I'm kidding. That isn't really part of it. You don't have to sniff or try and hear the book in order to check. Okay. Well, I am first checking the title. It's called Until We Meet Again. The author, whose name is Anne Schraff. And I'm looking for visual clues on the cover of the book. I see an illustration of a young girl, a young man, kind of in the distance, and then the faint image of an older woman in the sky. Now I'm going to link these clues to my prior knowledge. So as far as the title, Until We Meet Again, based on what I already know about sayings like that, it sounds like when one person misses another person. What I know about this author, Anne Schraff, is not very much, but what I do know is that she's authored other books in this series, the Bluford series, which are all stories that take place in Bluford High School and involve urban youth. And lastly, from the visual clues, what I know about when you see an image of a person in the sky like this or in the clouds, it's sometimes symbolic of someone who has passed away or who is now deceased. Now I'm going to uncover a prediction. I predict that the story will be about a young person who loses touch with another person, possibly another young person or a deceased older person. Now it's your turn to examine the reading.